Good morning. We call to order the School Board of St. Lucie County Special Work Session meeting. Welcome everyone that is with us today, whether you're joining us virtually or in person. It's always nice to have you be part of the team. If you would please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Mr. Superintendent, it appears we have some items for action during our work session today, so we will move into that and receive your recommendation, please.
I recommend approval of the agenda as submitted, particularly the HR agenda.
Thank you. Board members, we have a recommendation. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Ms. Hensley. Dr. Mills with the second. Thank you. Any conversation? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0, and let the record reflect that Mr. Ingersoll is not with us in person today, but he is joining us virtually. Okay, we'll move then to our items for discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And before we do that, one of the items you just voted on was a new principal at Southern Oaks Middle School, Mr. John Leslie, and John is here. John, you can come up to that microphone that's right there, but at that other table, we gave you your own special microphone. And John was currently serving as AP at Fort Pierce Central. He's been there for a couple of years. It has a great background, and we're excited about the opportunity of him taking over the helm at Southern Oaks. So, Mr. Leslie, go ahead.
Thank you, sir. Madam Chair, school board members, and Superintendent Gent, thank you for the opportunity to lead the children of St. Lucie Public Schools in the capacity of principal, Southern Oaks Middle School. These are some of their most formidable years. It is a high honor. I promise to be respectful of your time, but I would like to thank God, for with him, all things are possible. I would also like to thank my fellow administrative team at Fort Pierce Central High School. Love you all. Along with the teachers and staff and all of the individuals at my former schools and in leadership roles that have contributed to me being here today. I particularly would like to thank Dr. Kevin Perry, Principal Todd Smith, and Principal Mona Ray Buchanan. Serving as my mentors, you have truly poured out the essence of what a good leader is and what a good leader does. John Maxwell says, "A good leader is one who knows the way, goes the way, and shows the way." I would not be the leader I am today without your help and support. A special thanks to my family for their continued love and support throughout the years, and to the teachers and staff at Southern Oaks Middle School. I look forward to meeting you and am excited about what we will achieve together. Thank you all. Have a fantastic day.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Leslie. You made me nervous there when you had a notebook and you started reading. I thought we had a few pages to go here, but excellent job. You only get one chance to make a first impression, and that was excellent, so thank you. You don't have to hang out here. If you want to, you're welcome to. Most times they run for the door, so if you want to head back over to the school, that's fine, or your choice. No. Who is it? Is that Mr. Ocampo's school? Okay, all right, so you guys are together. All right, good. All right, good morning to everyone. And this morning what I'm going to do is talk about the year in review. We do this every year, and I'm kind of close to this, and so when you make comments, try to get up to the microphone, because it was hard when we have these, the portable mics. It's hard sometimes for them to hear it on TV. This is live today. We are broadcasting live. We normally don't do board workshops live, but I felt today that was important on some of the topics that we're going to discuss. So we're going to talk a little bit about the year in review. You have in front of you a packet. You have a handout, and you also have the points of pride, and I gave this to you the last couple of years, and this kind of gets into detail of each department, so you can take that with you, and then I'm going to kind of summarize that a little bit, and then and this is part really of my evaluation process, and then at July 14th, the board would take a formal vote. I'm available, as always, to meet with anybody at any time to discuss any issues that you would have or anything about, you know, your evaluation of me, things to work on, things that are looking good, however you want to do that, and you would take the official vote at the 14th of July. I want to start out with, this is on my wall, and it says organizations are no longer built on force, but on trust. So I'm beginning my 6th year back in St. Lucie County, and I think the only thing that's different when I look around is me, and I'm grayer. But you guys have remarkably have not aged, so you always start with a compliment. And, but I believe this wholeheartedly, and I think that that's the culture that we've established in the school district, based really on trust. That can't happen if we don't have a trusting board, if we don't trust each other as a team of 6, and so I'm very, very fortunate. So when I've had this with me, I had a board member in Palm Beach County that gave this to me when I left, because I tried to model it every day, and I was just sitting there this morning thinking about opening comments, so I really wanted to bring a visual, because I really try to model this. I think when an organization is built on trust, there's a free exchange of ideas. Most of the cabinet members are here right now, and we work very, very hard, but we also have a good time. You know, we use humor, but we're allowed to have free discussion, free ideas. Everybody knows that we can't be effective if they don't have permission to say what they know I don't want to hear, because that's the only way the organization can grow, is when we have a free exchange of ideas. It's a trusting environment. There's care, there's candor, but it's a good environment. And we try to set that culture for the district, of a single district culture. The culture is really how we do things around here, and the climate is how does it feel. And I'm very, very proud of the culture and the climate that we've established, but it can't be done without a strong school board. So I want to commend you on that. And I tell the staff all the time, and I say this all the time, you never take a good school board for granted. You just don't do that, because you can see the papers all over the country, and you can see battles and fights and things that really don't need to happen, and we really don't have that here. But we do have a free exchange of ideas, so I appreciate that very much from the board and from my team as well. Trust, I saw a quote somewhere, it's the building block. I got a little grandson. All of us got little guys running around, or most of us, or maybe they're getting teenagers now. But trust really is the building block of this organization, and something that I don't take lightly. What I'm gonna do here, there we go, we did the pledge. So we have 4 guiding principles, or pillars. All right, this is in the wrong spot, Lydia. This is next. This is, let me see, hold on. No, we're not. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to talk about, when it says for reopening, this is really, that's for the second phase of my presentation, but the reopening part is okay, because you'll see this slide again. But the 4 guiding pillars really are for the school district, and this is on our webpage. It's teaching and learning. Our core mission is teaching and learning. Right next to that is in safe and caring schools, the talent development, and in the communication, into 3 C's, we call it: communication, community involvement, and customer service. So my goals this year at the beginning that we made last year that the board approved was really to increase the proficiencies in ELA and in math, safe and secure campuses, and deliver, really to strengthen the delivery of services, particularly with social emotional needs of children. So at spring break, that got hijacked with our COVID. And we were right on the border of becoming an A district last year. We were so close. And our projections for this year were we were going to be an A-rated school district. And we were going to see gains in these areas. But as everybody's aware, when the pandemic hit, everything changed. So as far as data goes, we would have the data by school, we would have the data by departments, and it was an upward trend. And we're very good at predicting trends, and we're very good at predicting where we would land. So it was almost impossible, and is impossible really, to measure the 2 top goals in particular. Ensure safe and secure campuses. Absolutely, we've done that. And you can see because of the safety records that we have on our campuses. And then to strengthen the social, emotional well-being and mental health needs, that we were doing a good job with that as well. And Bill has data that backs that up. So we're kind of Our graduation rate, our predicted graduation rate last year was around 91%. That was for the entire school district, but it was really around 97% for our 6 traditional schools. This year, we're predicting our graduation rate for all of our schools to be in the 94-95% range. So an increase of all schools when you take into account Del Cassens and Performance-Based Academy as well, that when we put them in the mix, we're going to be at around 94-95%. But we have summer school going on right now. We have students there, seniors, and so this data doesn't really go to the state till sometime in the fall. But we've got it'll be an upward track for the school district. We're in graduation. Last graduation virtually has occurred. Next week we'll have our other ceremonies. In fact, this week on Thursday begins our first one, and that'll be Mosaic at Fort Pierce Central at 8 o'clock that morning. But these are the stats that we have from our schools right here, and you can see Central with over 600 students that are going to be graduating, almost $8 million in academic scholarships. Westwood, about 349 students, $2.5 million. We got the Promises of Promise too. Those are the young men and young women that are going to be going into education. We have about 50 this year from our school centers. LPA, I believe their graduation rate is going to be right at 100%, $9.2 million. PSL High School, about almost $3 million in scholarships, almost 400 kids that have graduated. When I say will graduate, they have graduated. I believe they have their diplomas too right now. We just haven't had an in-person ceremony. Here you can see again St. Lucie West Centennial High with over 600, almost $8 million in graduate, and then Treasure Coast High School. I think this is our largest class of over 700 students as well. And then Mosaic, which will be on Thursday, 26 students. The valedictorian is going over to, I believe, Scotland to do her studies, and I believe it's going to be in law. Very, very interesting lady. When she was here, young lady, when she was here doing her speech, I tried to go around and talk to some of the kids, and I was able to speak with her. And I always say, "Where will you be a year from now?" And she goes, "I'll be over in Europe." And I said, "Okay, what are you going to be doing?" And I believe it was in the law area where she'll be doing her studies there. In fact, she's already left, from what I'm told. And then performance-based, Susan Seal with 30 graduates at the school center over there. One of the things we did this year as well, and I really didn't talk too much about it when the pandemic hit, but we had our annual HBCU HSI College Fair, and Dr. Perry pretty much led that. And you can see that over $7.4 million was offered in scholarships, and this has been very successful for the school district and very successful for our young men and our young women to bring the schools here to them as opposed to having them go to the school centers. I want to shift over now into really what's happened in the school district. I'm going to kind of go pretty quickly. You have this in front of you, and I'm very, very proud of this because this is our survey that we do, that we give to our schools, and our principals fill that out based upon the services that we provide at the district. And so you can pretty much see that in almost every area, the yellow line represents overall 2019-20. And almost in every case, our schools they've gone up, and some very significantly. Some, I want to bring your attention to transportation. I know it's hard to see there, but if you look on your paper, transportation, it's at 4.36, and I believe that the year before it was 3.66. Got new leadership in there with Jacunte, and they've just done a great job there. If you look up above them, you see student services. So you can really compare that they've, for the most part, almost without exception, our level of service has gone up for our schools. And that's so important to us that, we're big on data, we're big on surveys. But when our principals, and this is anonymous, so we don't know what they say, and then they evaluate our departments, and then we look at that, we talk about it, and we celebrate successes, and we work on challenges that we have. So it was a good year based upon, in spite of all of the challenges that we faced. I think that's really an attribute of the leadership of my cabinet team and of our school principals in general as well, that we really were able to provide these services to our schools. This is accountability, assessment and accountability, and I'm going to go through quickly. You have the hard copy there as well. One of the things that we've asked that Daryl does is he works very closely with allocations in schools, and we've been able really to decrease some of the teacher allocations based on the students that are there. And Daryl kind of leads that charge, and that really gives us a lot more dollars in our general fund, which is we pretty much use for raises for all of our employees. You know, they had to stop mid-cycle here, and, you know, just getting ready for testing and get everything and bring it back, collect it back. But they do an excellent job of training staff, and he does an excellent job of working with our teachers, and it's one of our highest, you can see 4.78 rating out of a 5-point scale. So when you're in the 4s, you know, that's really saying something. And so he does a great job. Business services, a perfect financial audit. You know, the audits are really for years in the year before, and we had a perfect financial audit from Michelle and her department. They've worked with the budget dashboard and the staffing allocation. It's a team effort. And one of the things that's important right there, you'll see almost a 46% reduction in lost time claims for the first half of this school year, which really helps our fund. And they've worked, and haven't missed a beat, with really working remotely. They've done a digitalized bidding system, and they're training, you know, our secretaries, bookkeepers. The paperless travel request, that's in there right now, and so a great job with that. We don't have business services that's evaluated. I don't know how Michelle's missed, how we missed her, because her department has, you know, there's risk management in there, there's payroll, there's other departments. So we'll get that back on there for next year, Michelle. She forgot to remind me. Anyway, child nutrition services, you can see 4.34, and this is really food service, and you can see what they've done. They've done a remarkable job as well. Almost 425,000 families since COVID. You know, that's since the middle of March. And so they've done a great job in there, the Farm to School initiative. And, you know, their work is never done because we've got our storm season coming up. You can see they serve the 35,000 meals, and we've got to, you know, that's going to be one of our challenges next year is in what form and fashion we're going to feed our children. Communications, Lydia has taken over full-time now, and you can see from last year, you can see our different campaigns that we have. We Belong in School. We've got almost 13,000 followers, an increase of 4,000 or 45%. Lucie link that's out, it comes out every Tuesday. You can see the different YouTube, which is really the way that we communicate in a lot of areas, 158,000 views, and in our virtual graduations. Her, Kevin, Craig, the team did a remarkable job of getting everyone in here and doing our virtual graduations so quickly, and you can see, you know, a rating there of 4.84, which is very, very high. Custodial services, again, 4.30, that is an increase, and you can see the work that they do. You know, their work's cut out for them, as well as keeping our schools clean, which they've always done. Now, you know, it's at a different level with the COVID, and they haven't missed a beat. And they've even worked and helped train some of our bus drivers over spring break, you know, coming in and cleaning our schools and doing some things. And that makes you, ESE, one of our strongest department. Bill is you know, is just really a leader in that area. I call him the district's conscience, you know, because he's so erratic and emotional. And is he here? Where's Bill? All right. You know, in all seriousness, you know, Bill is just a rock, and he speaks in that calm voice, and it's kind of like, you know, hearing, you know, from another presence, you know, that he's calm, he's collected, and he makes sure we're on track. And you can see what he's accomplished here with the first aid and the training is everyone. The Start with Hello, the Save Promise Conference, and some of the board members were there. That was over at the Finn Center, and our different campaigns. This goes on. We'll talk about our teacher training, the student perks. You know, we've expanded that now. We had to close that down during the COVID, but that's expanded, and that really is a fantastic program for the children. I know everybody has seen that. And you can see the teacher training, 100% compliance audit for Medicaid. That's no easy task. You know, another 4.7, 4.69 rating from principals. And then this is just some other things they've done as well. This is big. School year with no due process or state complaints for students with disabilities. That's just remarkable. And, you know, kudos to Bill. Executive directors, they're behind the scenes. And the executive directors, one of the things that's impressive here is they evaluate the principals. They have about 12, 13 principals that they're responsible for supervising those principals. And when you look here at 4.94, you know, that is remarkable. That's probably the highest score that we have in the district. And these are the folks that have those. When I talk about a climate and an atmosphere of trust, this is where the rubber meets the road, where they're there in front of the principals, working with the principals, looking at the data, dealing with parents that are upset. And they do a remarkable job. Very rarely does anything get past them. You know, for the most part, you know, they just do a good job. And then the principals know they can trust them. The principals know that they're there to help support them and that they're there to serve them. So I'm really proud of the job that they do. The facilities, you know, it's been an interesting year for them. They've got us in the building. You can see right here, over 16,000 work orders, only 612 currently open. You know, that's a great deal. Working with CAST, that pretty much remodeled the West Wing. It's just about done, and you've seen the work over at Westwood with the esports lab and the media center renovations. This here is Marty, and Marty works with Marty again works behind the scenes with our government, PSL, the St. Lucie County, and Fort Pierce government agencies. And, you know, he's working with the EOC, with the COVID-19. He's at all those meetings. He communicates very clearly with me. I know we send information out to the board as well, and a valuable resource there. It doesn't really work with principals, so you really won't see my grade for Marty is we'll give him a 4.9 because there's always room for improvement on a 5-point scale. But he does a great job with our groups. This is human resources. You know, they've totally transformed the department. Raphael and his team, and you can see best places to work over the last 3 years. And you know, right now they're doing a lot of virtual screening, a lot of virtual job fairs. You know, a high mark again from our principals on the quality of service to them. IT. This is Terrence and his team, and you know, you can see what they've done. And just to the Wi-Fi for the 20 school buses in the community right now, the laptops, when we had to turn around and grab these laptops and distribute them, and then to keep them repaired. Now we're trying to get them back. We've gotten most of them back, and you know, the broke fix where they break down, you know, they've repaired over 3,000, and over the last 9 weeks. And so just you know, again, a high mark from the principals of the service that they perform to them. Again, IT, you can see the other things that are here. Viper ticket, the agreements, the effectiveness, you know, almost 96% on those tickets, which is just, again, a remarkable stat. You can see from COVID-19 when they had to just really turn around like the rest of us did, and what they've been able to accomplish. The legal department, really we saved money from outside counsel, and 38 administrative hearings this year, and special matters that have brought forward, and they've done a good job with that. Again, another high mark from our principals on the level of service that they receive from our school centers. Our core mission, which is in teaching and learning, really this is the different departments that are there. So it's difficult to put them on a slide, but you can see there's been increase, particularly in the area of elementary curriculum. It's really moved up this past year. They had to spend on a dime, and Helen and her team have done a fantastic job. I don't have any adjectives to use to go from a in-school traditional method of delivery to totally online, and the work that they have put in to do that has just been, again, I said this is your greatest moment, and next year will be their greatest moment as well, the challenges that they face, and you can see what they've been able to do, particularly with the Canvas and training our teachers on that. This is our summer program, the Caterpillar, the Spark, working with our community agencies. It's all on one slide there, what they've been able to accomplish. At the next board meeting, I'm going to give you an update of how summer school's doing. It started last week. You know, competitive grants, this is so important to us, and you can see the dollars that they've raised there. That adds up to almost $5 million in grants for the school district. Talent development, Denise in her department, you can see where we've revamped our aspiring administrator, the elite program building. We have the practices, all of the training that's going on. We've got to continually train. They've had to spend on a dime as well to train our teachers, particularly with online learning and virtual learning. and training administrators, training us on how to use Teams, those kinds of things. And then this is this is the mental health wellness initiative, and working with Bill's department, and you can see the information there. I know it's hard to read, but hours, 1,800 hours of curriculum support in this area. Safety and security, I saw Brian walk in here in a minute, and Brian's team as well. You know, that risk assessment, how many pages is it, Brian? 450 questions that he has to fill out for 42 schools. It's, yeah, his, all right. Okay, let me just, Brian, you want to take over for me here? Anyway, he and his team and working closely with the Sheriff's Department, keeping our kids safe. And you can see the Code Red trainings that have been done, the radios. We got a grant of over almost $174,000. And we don't hear a lot from them because they're behind the scenes, but we would hear something, you know, we would hear if something went wrong. And so, let's see here. How did I screw this up? And when you look at our principals, 4.87, you know, that they feel safe. They know they're getting the services that they need, which is a credit to Brian and his team, as well as our school resource officers that are in our school centers. This is student assignment. I know it's hard to read, but student assignment does an excellent job. They've been pretty much, they're back in the building, as you can see right now, but they received a grant this year of almost $65,000 for the homeless children. And that's near and dear to their heart. You can see the supplies that they have in there. And they really look out for all of our kids, but you can see what they work with different agencies and build good relationships. When they were up at Gaines last year, this is really to help some of our families in the northern end of the county, and we'll do it again this year for a couple of weeks. You know, they were able to service almost over 3,000 families that come in, and again, high marks from our principals. Transportation, on-time percentage runs of almost 94%. That's unheard of. We had a Here Comes the Bus app. They've really transformed, Jacunte has, you know, and his team have really transformed the department. And some major challenges for the new year we'll talk about in a couple of minutes, but again, a job well done. The referendum, this is the referendum update. I was going to go live to it, but I won't. But, you know, we're in our second year of the referendum. If I were to go live, Lydia, where would I hit here? Well, I'm not. But you know, on the page, it lists where the dollars have gone. You've seen the pie chart. We'll be meeting with that group. The Citizens Advisory Committee will meet with them in August. And we'll be able to show where the dollars went for the teachers, for the school security, for the mental health. And then this past year, we did the fine arts, where we tried to help and shore up some of the schools with the fine arts. All of that is on the district webpage. It's very transparent. Anyone can see it. And I'll review it at our next workshop. I'll go over that in a little more detail when we meet with that committee, probably in August, and I'll share that information from this past year and where we are with that. Next year's goals, I'm going to shift gears now and go into next year. Any questions? Anything anybody wants to say about the previous year before I move on to the future? Everybody good? Everybody with me? Okay. It's going to be hard right now, so these are kind of, these could change, but the robust instructional delivery system of what we're going to do in our school centers. You know, we will still have, my goals from last year will still be there as far as increase in ELA, as an increase in math, because those are important, those are measurable. But I think right now, this is going to be important as well, that we're going to be able to deliver instruction to our students. I'll talk more about that in a moment. The safety of our children, an environment where everyone is safe, not just safety from COVID and from disease, but also the mental health aspect of it, social, emotional learning, and then, again, as I mentioned, to make sure that we're meeting the needs of all of our students. So the four guiding principles really are pillars for the reopening. Again, teaching and learning, safe and caring schools, talent development, and the 3 C's. So this is what I want to talk about. Number one, teaching and learning. So when we sit back now and we talk about the last 9 weeks of school, and when we went into a virtual world, some of the questions we have to ask ourselves: did our students do the work? And the answer is yes and no. Did our students learn or regress? The answer would be yes and no. We don't know to what degree until school starts back and we start diagnostics. What was the quality and the level of teacher engagement for our students going into an online world? You know, the teachers that have the best relationships and engage the students when they're in person had the highest marks, again, when they went online. And we have some data to support that. And that would be an area, because we did teacher training in that area, but we were aware that the way it was set up, sometimes students weren't able to actively engage with their teachers. Sometimes that would be on the school end. Sometimes that would be on the student end, because they were sharing devices with family members. So this is an area that we take a look at. And then what was the fidelity of the instruction? What was the level of the instruction? How strong was the instruction? Our curriculum department did a remarkable job of getting that information out there to them. And so these are the questions we asked ourselves and are asking ourselves as we are planning and preparing for next year. Because the biggest thing, and there's a moral purpose, is the achievement gap. And that gap has probably expanded, and I'll talk a little bit more about it right now. So we know that this has really disproportionately affected our at-risk kids. The slimmer slide has been lengthened. When they come back August 10th, that will, I believe, approximately 20 weeks since they would have been in front of a teacher and not been online, because summer school is online for the most part as well. So that would be 20 weeks. So when we talk about our summer slide, or a little bit of a regression, we can anticipate that that's even larger in the school district, even for students, not just students that are at risk, but I believe for all students, or for the most part. Some of our kids thrive in a virtual world, and that's great. But a lot of them, there's no substitute for human connection. There's no substitute for being in front of a student, in front of that classroom, and looking them in the eyes and seeing what's going on. We know that kids in the earliest grades and students with disabilities are more successful when they're receiving that direct instruction and they're getting those services on campus. And all of our kids need a rigorous and engaging education. And those two words are going to be important, because that's what we're going to do for next year in the different formats that we're going to deliver. It's going to be of rigor and engaging our students. I can't say that it was that rigorous for the last 9 weeks, and we really worked with our students. And that's not a criticism of anyone, but we had to err on the side of the kids and make sure that the kids, you know, I was more concerned about the human connection than I was about academics for the last 9 weeks. And I expressed that to our principals and made sure that we were trying to really reach out to the students and making sure that the students were okay, holding the kids accountable and pushing that, but knowing that some of the children don't, you know, that unfortunately for some of our kids, the best relationships are with their teachers on the campus. And so we try to fill that gap as we have over the years, and you all know that. Teaching and learning equity, this was forefront. You know, equity really is a system that works for everybody, not just some. So we have to really look now, and what we are doing is a structural change. You know, when I looked at the word structural, I was thinking about the Roosevelt Bridge. You know, we've got to look just like what they're doing, where they're going, and I've watched them this weekend where they're doing their test on the bridge. Well, we've got to do that in all of our areas: our teaching, learning, our grading systems, how we train our teachers, and how we engage our students and our parents. This is some interesting stats here. This is from the DOE. 2/3 of parents, employed parents, say that the closures or the lack of child-centered care, either somewhat at 41% or greatly at 23%, hurt their abilities to perform their jobs. So we know that not only are our students being affected by what has occurred, but that parents have been affected by that. And this one here with working moms, 71% say that this is somewhat, or 72% say that it is either somewhat or greatly hurt their job performance. So that 71% is compared to 44% for fathers. The internet access, the IT team, under Terrence's leadership, you know, have been there. But when we really break this down, and this is a statewide stat right here, 35% of low-income households are without high-speed internet, 70% of moderate, and 6% of what we would call middle class or affluent. And then the gap is greater for our children of color, African American and Hispanic families. So this is something the district has worked really hard on, and we're continuing to do this. So when we roll out our new system for next year, you know, this will be important. But you can see that gap, and even though we had 20 buses that are out there, that's going to be a challenge for the next school year. This will be probably the most important slide I'm going to show you today, because this kind of like is what I think are going to be the three, and we're going to talk about this again July 14th. But right now, in this date and time, I believe that these are the three best options for us for next year. So I want to talk about that with the board. And again, these are ongoing discussions that we're having. The traditional return to campus where classes are held in person. We're all familiar, we know what that is. And we had in our data and our stats that went out in our survey to our parents, you know, that was in the 40-50% range, low 40s, depending upon how the question was asked. So that will be one thing that we will be doing is traditional returning to the campus in the traditional setting. We'll talk more about what that will look like as far as safety in a couple of minutes. And I also want to say that when I'm presenting this, these are kind of like from a 30,000 point view. Dr. Prince and has a team of teachers and administrators and bargaining representation on there as well that are getting into the weeds. The second one is school-based virtual. And I want to explain this and what this would look like and how this is different from the last 9 weeks. What this would be is where a student would have their schedule. So let's say I'm a high school student at Port St. Lucie High School, and I have English, ELA, English Language Arts, at 8 o'clock. That student would be online with their computer with that teacher at 8 o'clock. The only difference is they're at home, and it's a virtual world. But it would be in front of the teacher. The teacher would then at 9 o'clock, let's say at 8 o'clock it's English, at 9 o'clock it's math. At the high school levels, I know that we have alternating days. So we would follow the same school schedule, but in a virtual world, so that the teachers are teaching full-time at home. And we'll be working with what that would look like and who those teachers would be when we bargain that with David. But you'd have that live schedule, and you would follow along. So it would be different from what's there now, where it was kind of like sometimes you would have your teacher and they would be in front of you, and it could be at different times of the day. This would be a virtual class where I'm following my schedule at home. The teacher themselves is following the schedule as well. You know, and the expectation for the teacher is going to be rigor and high expectations. You know, we can't have teachers saying, well, I have to stay home for childcare. That has to be something they work through, because this is their job. This is where we're teaching children. So it's a full-time, you know, working at home virtually is almost in some aspects much more difficult than it is to be in the setting. We'll be following our Canvas. The Canvas would be our platform, which we just used as well. This follows the district's scope and sequence. So what's happening virtually will be the same thing, following the same scope and sequence that our students that are in the school building themselves are following. The Canvas is flexible as far as teaching assignments, quizzes, grading. It's aligned with instruction with some of our textbooks. It's also aligned with Skyward. The third option is, and also with this one, this would be something where there's a commitment when we send the information out after once we seal the deal, and we'll seal the deal probably July 14th. There'll be a little more conversations regarding this. But when this goes out, this will be a commitment. And whether it's going to be a 9-week commitment or a semester commitment, that if I sign up for this, this is where I'm going to be. Now, the beauty of this, we have to anticipate the unknown for next year. And if we have to close down a school, or we have to close down a grade level, or we have to close down a wing for any reason, the students can immediately slide over to the school-based virtual, because we're on the same scope and sequence. We're both on the same classes. We're both on the same scope and sequence delivery system. Or if a child decides, I'm at home, but I want to come back in and go traditional, they can make that. So the beauty of that is we're going to be doing the same thing in 2 different settings. but we can be prepared for any contingency. With full-time virtual Mosaic, that's what we already have in place. That requires really a year-long commitment. And that's a little bit different because they do not follow the district scope and sequence. It's more tied into Florida Virtual School. But what we will do is explain in detail to our parents and to our students about these options. So right now, this is kind of the direction I'm leaning in. This is what the kind of leaning in strongly in the recommendations regarding this. And I'll answer some questions in just a minute. I want to finish up, but I wanted to have the board see that, and then we'll move on. This is safe and caring schools, the second pillar. So we're getting away now from teaching and learning. They all intertwine. And this is really about the policies that we have in place. This is our closures, if we have to do that, our social distancing, our hygiene, cough and sneeze etiquette for kids that are there, face coverings, what will that look like, temperature screenings, students stay at home when you're sick, staff stay at home sick, return protocols. That's all the things that Dr. Prince's committee is working on right now, that we'll have a handbook out, and we'll share that with the school board at our next school board meeting. We have to anticipate the reality of closures. We have to anticipate that that's going to happen. Dr. Prince has a great analogy with that. It's like in a big storm, you have a power outage in this part of the community or that part of the community. We anticipate that and are prepared for that for next year. Just as important is the social emotional of the children. They want to feel safe. They want to be connected. They want to return to normal. They got to have mental health and social learning support and an awareness of cultural diversity. We've talked about what's happening in our country right now, and that'll be a heavy emphasis as well as next year. As reviewing our curriculums, I'm going to be having some meetings with some of our teachers and some of our administrators and leaders in the area of cultural diversity and sensitivity and training, and we're establishing that through some PD that will go on. So that will be a heavy emphasis on that. And then the students, when they're there, they really benefit with that interaction with somebody, as well as the teachers do, when they see somebody there to interact with. We talked about many of our children have struggled with access to food, social isolation, parents out of work, and in some cases, a lack of a caring adult. We step in and fill that role. And again, the cycle, interpersonal, emotional needs of the students, this is a priority. So that's under our safe and caring schools and in the SEL strategies. We will, when we come back, whether it's in the virtual world or in the classroom, for the first few weeks, we will spend a lot of time on this, on where are the kids at and how are they feeling and what have they been through. And that will be built into the school day. Pillar 3 really is about talent development and growth, and this is really where we have to look at our SE, the needs of our students and staff, review the student learning loss, which I've talked about from the spring and summer, address the gaps, spiral the curriculum, and accelerate the curriculum. So this is where teacher training and administrator training and district level training and superintendent training, we have to continue to do this. This is important. Our teachers were thrown into it. They did an outstanding job of adjusting to the virtual world. And it was really learning by on-the-site learning. Here it is. And we try to do some trainings for them, so this way we'll be able to continue to do this, working with our students and working with the teachers on what good quality instruction looks like, whether you're in front of them or whether you're not, with the key being the engagement of our students, whether in a virtual world or whether in front of them. And then finally, the 3 C's, the community involvement and customer service, a heavy emphasis on family engagement. Our families, if anything, have really recognized and come to appreciate through the last 9 weeks what a teacher really goes through. And many of the parents have been very frustrated with that because they've had their own challenges, their own job, their own, everything that we all go through. So we'll have a heavy emphasis on family engagement, as well as working with our community departments, Children's Service Council, everybody that's involved in the roundtable, the different community organizations and groups that are out there, the agencies that we work closely with. We'll continue that and try to strengthen that. I'll close out really. Can anybody see anything different with this picture?
Yeah. Cute.
Okay, so we have that. Our Statue of Liberty is that we take every child that comes into us. And so whether they're going to be there in front of us or whether they're going to be That says 2020, that's our online, some of our online curriculum. You know, we're going to continue to support them. So these are going to be the guiding pillars that we follow as we really meet the challenges of next year and move in, of which we know there'll be many. Again, I believe I brought it. It's a rough draft, but we are working on a document with our schools to get into the weeds now about the logistics of school and the, those that are in school. What will class change look like? What will class setups look like? What will lunch look like? What will transportation look like? Will we be driving with our windows down as opposed to up? We're working closely with the health department, with Clinton and his group as well as taking the best advice from the state that you can take and following CDC. We will do the best that we can to really mitigate challenges. We're not going to be able to eliminate the virus, but we can do everything that we can to mitigate the effects that would have in the school center, with clean buildings, with students walking one way, going another way. All of these things is what Dr. Prince and his team is working on. Bridget Hardigant, Bridget was brought over as well, and she's doing a great job in putting this together and working with Dr. Prince and then the different groups so that, what does drop-off look like? What does pickup look like? All of those things, we're working around the clock really to develop that and to have that ready so that our schools have always been safe and clean, and they will continue to be that, and we have to do business a little different way. I'm very confident in what we've saw for the last 9 weeks, that next year it's going to be, no matter what occurs, we have a problem-solving mechanism in place to be able to pivot, to address that, and to fix it, and to alleviate whatever the challenge would be. Okay? I'll open it up to any questions that anybody has. I apologize, I don't usually talk that long, but every June I have to talk that long to let you guys know what's going on. And again, to commend my team behind me, because none of this can be accomplished without a quality team and with the job that they do.
Madam Chair,
Ms. Henderson?
I had the privilege of speaking to a fourth grader on the phone, and her concern from Floresta was not about her school, but it was about what you addressed in school-based virtual. She said, could we please have the same schedule? That's what her request was. She said, I'm at home, because her grandpa's home with her, but she said, if we could do the same schedule, and I had the same classes and my teachers, she said, I think that would make it easier for her. So if it would make it easier for her, who is a child of trauma, it would probably make it easier for other kids too. So I'm glad that you addressed that. That was a fourth grader's only concern.
Dr. Mills, did you have a comment?
I too, I deal with a lot of people in the community, a lot of children. And I've gotten back from our children that they really want to return back to school.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that has to do with the emotional connection as well. But I have not met a child yet that have said, I like what we're doing better at home.
Correct.
I want to be back in the classroom, back in school. Having said that, we understand and know that in our community and surrounding communities that at this point in time, the COVID-19 has been on the increase. And so we do have to look at those school-based virtual programs that we can put out. That is a real possibility that we may have to go to. I know that we have a push from our governor to open up traditionally back into schools, but we really need to look at, and I think county by county right now in the state of Florida, and how we're going to deal with that. And the most important thing for me is the safety of each student. I've also spoken to a lot of parents, and the parents want them back in school as well, because it's been very challenging for the parent to become teachers. And one thing that's good that have come out of this is that parents really do appreciate the teacher more and the work that the teacher puts in, and the school district. And and the schools. And so hopefully whatever we do and as we move forward, we can keep the parent involved in ways that they have gotten used to being involved, and at the same time, make sure that we do the best we can virtually. If we do have to go into, I like the idea of that that live classes with the teacher, but I had a question in regards to something that if we haven't considered, which I'm sure we have, is that there is interaction with the teacher and the student like it would be in school. You know, you can have a live teacher up there teaching, but not the interaction that's necessary to keep the child engaged. So I appreciate that we are, as a school district, we are moving forward and being very diligent in dealing with this time that we have to deal with. So thank you for your presentation, Superintendent. I think it was very well said and covered a lot. Thank you.
Well, thank you. In the deal with the teacher, with option number 2 there, the live class, you know, we have the technological capacity through our teams now so that the teacher could teach all of them and see their faces, because we're, you know, we'll be able to get 49. We're not going to have a class of 49, I don't think. We won't. Maybe in PE. But that they'll be able to see them, and then they can also break out into small groups where they do differentiated instruction, where she may have or he may have the 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 children right there, while the other ones are working on an assignment, and then they bring them all back in, just like you would do in a classroom. So it's a really, really powerful way of teaching. But the key is what you said there, and that's what we're stressing, and that's what the training is. There's got to be that relationship, even though it's through a machine. There's got to be the interaction. There's got to be the engagement. The engagement is the key word, that you've got to keep the children engaged, and the teacher themselves has to be engaged. And those teachers have to be engaged with each other. So through their CLP, their collaborative learning and planning meetings, you know, we want to take that to another level where we're looking more at student work, looking at what's happening there so we can analyze that. And, you know, so we can do the same thing. It's just not, I think the most effective is what you said, and I think we all agree, and what the parents have said too, the majority of them, we want our kids back in front of the teacher. We want them in the school, we want them in the schools, we know where they're at. That also has an economic impact to the county itself, where people are able to go back to work, be able to work full-time in their jobs. And the dilemma is the safety aspect, and so we're doing everything we can to mitigate all of that. I can't eliminate it, but I can mitigate with a very structured, and I call it simple and safe, where these are the things, you know, we've seen people now, you know, the cases are going up. They're not wearing the mask in public, and we've seen the hit with the 20-year-olds, and I've got 2 in the house, you know, the 20-year-olds to the 32-year-olds, and what are they doing, you know, because, you know, they have that mindset, it doesn't affect us, I'm immune. You know, washing your hands, sneeze etiquette, coughing etiquette, how we're going to walk to class, how we're going to get out of a car, what are we going to do on a bus. We will be temperature, we will be, I call it zapping, but we will be doing the temperature check of all of our students and the logistics behind that, because each school center has its own footprint, you know, of what it looks like and where the children have access to come to school. The clinic is going to change. We have to have another room in case children do have a fever. So all of these issues, you know, again, working with the health department, with our team, with John and Bill and the whole team. If I mention names and don't mention somebody's name, they're going to think I left them out. But that crew, they know who they are. So we're trying to take every contingency, as well as reading the latest research that comes down from particularly science. You know, we're following the science as well. It is a local decision what we do. It will be a local decision based upon what the school board wants to do, and the state has made that, you know, very, very clear. And so, you know, we're setting up what we think would be the best option for St. Lucie County schools.
And Superintendent, you mentioned the safety aspect, and as well as with parents. They want their child back in school, but they do not want to risk unsafe schools at the same time. And even with our summer programs out there now, parents who we've known for years are saying, no, I don't want my child in the summer program because of what's going on right now. So we have to take all of that into account.
Yes, before I recognize you, Ms. Hilson, Mr. Ingersoll's hanging, would like to share a comment or a question. Mr. Ingersoll? Mr. Ingersoll? Mr. Ingersoll?
Thank you, thank you, Ms. Hawley. I appreciate it. Thank you, board members. Thank you, Superintendent Jett, and your program or your presentation. I really do appreciate it and all the work that you guys are doing. Wayne, I just have a question. Typically, we know right now how many teachers we need and how many teachers we need to hire. Is there still a hiring freeze going on? And if so, I know you probably don't have those numbers, but could you email us how many openings there are? And yeah, that's just basically what I was wondering.
I'm wondering where you are. No, I know where he is. I know where he is. He's out of town. But and thanks for calling in. Yes, the hiring freeze, we have at the elementary level, and I brought this up 2 weeks ago as well. At the elementary level, we are hiring folks that have the reading endorsement, and in ESE and the ESE areas, or where there's critical shortage areas. In the secondary level, we're looking at the ELA, the math, the sciences, the core curriculums, where we are doing hiring in some of those areas as well. So I could get, with Raphael and HR to give you an update on that. Part of that is based upon, and I didn't really hit it today, is the budget, the budgetary outlook. We should know something here in the next week. The governor they have to come up with a budget to send out to us, and they're putting an optimistic look on that. And the governor just last week had talked about, the more that business picks up and the more the economy picks up, the better that is. You can see some of the Orlando attractions and those things opening. So we hopefully, and they've talked about their reserves up there. So once we get that from them, this may be something that we go into the year under a certain budget, but that's something we have to monitor closely each month, which we're doing right here. We do have the freeze. We are, I do review all purchases that are going out as well. So answer to your question, yes and no. The hiring freeze is for certain, in certain areas, but for the, I just laid it out how we're doing it, and we'll get that information to you. We'll have a clearer picture when we get the information next week on the budget from the state, because it kicks in July 1st. So
That's what I thought, Wayne. We just have some people calling in and asking us, and I just wanted to make sure I was saying the same thing that we were told last month. I do appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Hilson?
I would just agree that the traditional is certainly what I hear from the community. I have some parents that are actually in panic, not knowing what they will do as struggling economically if we don't follow through, but they certainly understand the fact of the safety. And one of the things I've thought about, I watched a documentary the other night during World War II, and how the children in England had to adapt at a very, very young age. When the siren went off, these little children and parents ran underground into shelters. And I thought about having to teach our children to adapt. And then looking at some of the children in China at a very young age, those children wear masks. And I believe that we can teach our children the protocol, since we know now, even though there hasn't been excellent scientific evidence, because I think it was blocked to us at some point, unfortunately, that we're talking more of an aerosol, more of a spreading through the air, less of the tactile touching, even though that's important. So in my mind, I think about children on the buses wearing masks, and of course all the adults, all the drivers, all the teachers, and teaching the protocol as young as pre-K, kindergarten, that when you come to school, you wear a mask. I mean, I wear a mask pretty much all day as a preschool director, and we've learned that way of operating with children. And it's hard, yes, it's not wonderful, but it's almost like a new way of thinking and a new way of life as we go through this, because there's so many unknowns. But in looking at the spread airborne, I mean, I think that we could, and I know that you're reviewing that, and thank you so much. This was, you and your team, a really good report. But I mean, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know. We know the numbers right now are going up. Florida is a hot spot, unfortunately. So to get on the front end of that, we may really want to look at having masks, purchasing them, and if you come to school, you wear a mask, adults and children, and there's no exceptions. And I mean, that's kind of my feeling, because I really would love to see us go back traditionally with what we've already done. The social emotional piece is huge. And I have a great concern for children that are in a situation that might be physically, emotionally, mentally, sexually being abused, which we know that goes on, and we know the rates have gone up. So we need eyes on the children physically, but I would love to see us do it in a safe way, and hopefully going forward, we can look at that.
We have been ordering, we have been ordering the soaps, the hand sanitizers, we've ordered masks. The decision, we'll have to make, it's going to be an expectation for the adults to wear the mask. That will be an expectation, and that's, where I'm waiting for the committee, what their recommendation would be. I know it would be strongly, whether it's mandatory or strongly encouraged for students. I think we have to do a really good job of educating our parents on the benefits of that and the protection, because what this does, it protects you from me. That's what it does. It's protecting, the little, the droplets that come out when we talk. And then the etiquette for kids, it'll be a different world, because we will have wash stations, where we're, every time we go from one place to another, we're going to be washing our hands. We're going to have the sanitizer, some of them have them in the classrooms. All those things is what the committee's working on, and not losing sight of, of wearing the mask, or of washing your hands, of coughing etiquette, sneezing etiquette. I learned how to spell the word etiquette the other day. And, the things that we've been told by Dr. Fauci and that crowd at the very beginning, of these basic things to continue to do, and then when you don't do them, then you increase the chances. And so it's, I feel confident in what we'll come up with, again, that we can do the best job we possibly can to mitigate as much as we can that our schools are safe for our kids and for our staff members and for all of us. And I know that's where the board stands on it as well. So we'll have specific protocols in place. The temperature checks as well when they're getting on the, we're working through that. Is it on the bus? If they have the temperature on the bus, they'll be sitting in a certain section. When they get to school, they go to a certain place. When children get off the bus, they go directly to, all of those, working out how would lunch look. Do we do split lunches, half in the classroom, half in the cafeteria? Do we use pavilions outside? Do we use, all of these things that the committee is working on, so that we can have that out for our parents when they make a decision as to whatever the options are. They make that informed decision. And then the beauty really of the virtual is that we can adjust that, if there's a hot spot or an outage, as we call it, from one school to another.
Just not lose sight of, as Ms. Hilson was saying, the mask, because children do adjust pretty easy. And I know personally in our home, when we go out, our children wear masks, because like you said, they're protecting others. The mask protects, we protect each other with that. And so I know that as adults, we kind of think that, well, children wearing masks, that's kind of strange and weird, but it's weird to see everybody out there wearing masks. It's just what it is and the time that we're in. So really, I also would advocate that the children have masks if they could be turned back, if that's what, if we're at that point and stage with the COVID.
There are certain kids, and we're looking at this too, the younger ones, there's kids with, and everybody knows common sense, underlying health conditions,
Oh, yeah.
that prohibit that. So we're working with Bill within that area as well. And then, there's certain ages that they don't, I've got a almost 4-year-old, and he wears them.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have a kindergarten
And it's
coming
like,
in,
what,
and he wears them.
is it Spider-Man, or is it
Yeah, and they like it. They don't have a problem with it.
Iron Man? But that's what we're looking at right now, and we would come back to the board with that in 2 weeks.
Mr. Superintendent, just another logistical question, and you alluded to it a little bit. But in order for us to know what our facilities need to house, is there going to be some sort of a timeline for parents to have to commit
Yes.
to their choice?
Yes, when we would, once we put a bow on it, then the next day, we would be sending surveys out of a time certain, and probably within a week, we need this information back. We're really gonna need it back sometime maybe beginning of the 4th week of July. And so that parents make the decision, and if we don't hear back, then we're gonna be signing them up for traditional.
Okay.
But we'll do a blitz, we'll do the school messenger, it'll be on the news, it'll be everywhere. Principals will be getting the calls out so that parents will be aware that it's there. It'll be online. And so we'll try to, work with the community agencies, the churches, everybody to make sure that they complete that, to turn it back in. And then that gives us the time that we're going to need.
Yeah, because it'll impact our transportation and all
Exactly,
of those
exactly.
issues,
And,
so.
Yeah, we may ask the board to come back even earlier. I know the board meeting's set for the 14th. The 17th the 7th is a Tuesday as well. Like maybe check everybody's schedule and see if everybody's available then, with the possibility of a workshop setting as well as presenting what we have in front of you at that time, because time will become of the essence. I know there's some other districts, are going to be making, some have already made announcements, particularly over on the West Coast. I know Miami-Dade's going to come up with something today. I think Indian River's on Friday. So I would like to, within the next couple of weeks, maybe try to wrap that up. So if you can work with Chris and everybody's schedule and maybe come back at 9 o'clock on the 7th, if that works.
And one other item, FSBA's been holding weekly meetings. And at one of those meetings, all board members were assured that through Florida Department of Education and the state, they would make enough masks and sanitizers available for schools to reopen, part of their push to reopen traditional sites. So hopefully, that will come through, because that's an awful lot of masks when you talk about new ones every day, if they're paper or whether they'll be cloth or whatever. But we should have some support there.
It's a budgetary issue, and we're addressing it now. And the best ones are the cloth, where you can wash and reuse them and those kinds of things. And so that's information we'll get out as well.
If I may, Madam Chair, the director of FEMA made some pledges, and with our history with FEMA, the reimbursement is sometimes a very long way off. But he did make some pledges of different decontamination machines and all these different things, which are very good, but they're not cheap. He said that it would be covered by FEMA, but that means the money would have to be spent up front, and then we'd have to go through the stand in line, basically, to get reimbursed. And knowing the money that's coming from the federal government, the state can take 10% off the top, which of course they will. And that also some of the money we get now have to be shared with private schools, no matter the condition they're in. And we are supposed to be able to confirm their enrollment, which I don't think we have the ability to do. But I guess we'll have to wait and see how it all shakes out. But there may be some opportunities for some funding for some things, but to Ms. Hilson's thing, kids didn't want to use seatbelts either. We told them they had to use seatbelts. There's always a process to kind of get them into the fold of what we know is the best for them. So, but the money thing, the School Board Association, Superintendent Association, even the State League of Women Voters, all these organizations have given suggestions to the governor on where he could cut that would not touch any education budget.
And we have adjusted our budget because this is the highest priority. So there may be some projects that were scheduled for this year and next year that aren't going to be completed because those dollars have gone for school safety and for, like you say, the hand sanitizer, the mask, all of those things that are needed for our school centers, the signage that you needed. We're looking at different options that are out there, and you assume that one day you'll get it back. We talked about that, I think, last week at our cabinet meeting. Michelle Thomas is the youngest member of cabinet. I won't say her age, but she's in her early 40s. And the bet was, would we get reimbursed before she retires? But we are planning that, and I don't want there to be any, we have adjusted our dollars to make sure that our schools are safe, and they will be.
Madam Chair, just one other thing that I saw, and I don't know, I don't advocate, but it could be a possibility that the PTOs in the schools, we have so many people that sew and create masks, that maybe they would create, some of the parents, mothers that do so would create the cloth mask with the symbol of the school or the name of the school or something to make it. I mean, I see all the football teams. I just actually bought some masks for somebody who doesn't like to wear masks that have their football logo on there in hopes that they would wear their mask the way they should. So I'm just kind of putting that
Yeah,
out there.
and our schools are doing
Creativity.
that now. I used to get shirts from schools, now I'm getting masks with their logo on it. And speaking of schools, John Leslie, I called him Mr. Leslie, he's a doctor. He's Dr. Leslie, so just wanted to make everybody aware of that, so treat him with respect.
But he's not going to do a physical diagnostic. So.
He might be in the clinic.
Well, again, this was a very thorough and comprehensive workshop with a lot of information, past, present, and future to consider and to think about. So thank you and your team for putting it all together. Certainly, there's way more to deal with this year than we had a year ago, different. But one thing I know and I'm proud of is that we're part of a school district that cares about the students and the employees and put them first in every decision and opportunity that we have. So thank you, Mr. Superintendent, for your leadership and for
Thank
your
you.
team.
Thank you very much. And thank you all. And thank you for, like I said, I started out with trust, and that's, you know, I know you all trust me, and I trust you, and we, you know, for the district to thrive, we have to thrive as a board, and we do. And it's just, we never take it for granted, and I guess, Ms. Olson, it's too late to reconsider. I saw that, well, I'm going to get off track, so I won't, but it's about term limits. You know, you can sit out for 4 years and come back.
Okay.
Did you know that? Did you know that? The judge just ruled. So anyway, that wasn't in the presentation. That wasn't in the presentation. The other deal is, and we're going to be talking with Clint tomorrow, we have our graduation scheduled for next week. It's going to be outdoors. A mask will be required of everyone. We are sitting, we have social distancing going on, that it's going to be in the bleachers every 2 rows, and then the 6 feet apart. We don't anticipate the entire graduating class showing up as well. We've already got pretty much the numbers where when it's been reduced at some schools significantly, and that's just an option if it's not required by any means. We have a meeting tomorrow with Clint in his office just to discuss it one more time, because we think we have all the protocols in place. We'll have sanitizer, but the mask will be required for entry. We encourage people to bring an umbrella, because I'm not worried about rain, but it's the heat. And hopefully the Saharan dust that comes over will stick out through next Wednesday. But if you'll just let me know, and I don't think it's necessary for all 5 to be at every meeting, board members, for a graduation. But if there's one you want to attend, just let Chris know so that we can set up, because we may not be able to set everybody up on the stage, but we may have a special section on the side as well. That's going to be, you know, just let you know that. And then our first one will be this Thursday at 8 in the courtyard of Central. We're trying to get in the shade when the sun comes up at 8. So it'll be mosaic, and there's approximately 20 students, 20, 28, I'm not right in that range of students that will be there, and then we'll honor them.
Excellent. Any other business, board members?
Madam Chair, a couple of things. With the FSBA last week, we did create a new equity committee that will be a different committee than we had years ago, which was an equality committee. This is an equity committee, and the makeup of the board of that group is very interesting and should be very dynamic. Also, last week, what we did was change our bylaws so that every district is expected to have a representation on the advocacy committee, not the legislative committee. The legislative committee will be a part of the advocacy committee, a very much smaller group, because we have determined that our main role is going to need to be advocacy both in our communities and within the state. And also, we had a conversation with, I had a conversation with Children's Services Council. We were putting on our website the Harvard implicit bias test. Years ago, when we did the Ruby Payne training, we found out that a lot of our employees were using the right language, but they were speaking, using the same words, but speaking a different language. So we're going to encourage everybody to take that implicit bias test so they have an understanding of their own biases. There's a variety of tests in there, but the one we're going to be focusing on is the one about race.
Thank you, Ms. Hensley. Well, seeing and hearing no other business to come before us, we are adjourned.